Hello guys, how's it going? It's me Martin, and I'm here to talk about Resident Evil 8 Village. Now, of course, it's a first-person action horror game, as you know. Next, Resident Evil game in the main line, Resident Evil 8, and let's just get to it. In Resident Evil 8, you play as Ethan, which is a father looking for his daughter in the woods, and in my opinion, I think the story is fantastic. Or maybe not fantastic, it's great. It's got some flaws, like I think there's a massive plot hole, and there's kind of a problem with pacing. Like there's a couple sections where there's no combat, and while they're okay, like the first time, when playing on repeat playthroughs, they do kind of drag and go on for a little too long, like especially like the beginning goes on for too long. But other than that, I think the story and the pacing is pretty solid, pretty good, pretty interesting. The main protagonist, Ethan, which I think in Resident Evil 7 was a pretty boring, forgettable protagonist, is decently better here. He's not great, but he's solid, he's good. I did like him. And you also have Chris Redfield coming in, which I think he's great. He's awesome whenever he shows up. There is kind of a plot hole around him and something that doesn't make a lot of sense, but overall I still liked him in the game. And of course, the game has 5 villains, these 4 lords that are around, and you have to take them out, and the main villain. And I would say the 4 side villains that you fight and like encounter in the story, they're all great, they're all very interesting and memorable, and I like all of them. I think, of course, Lady Dimitrescu is the most interesting one, but I think they're all great, and I won't spoil them here. But I gotta say that the main villain sucks. She's very forgettable. She is lame. She is unthreatening, uninteresting. Like I just did not like her, and I think she's a really weak point in the story. But other than her, I think the villains are really good. Now, let us answer a very important question. Is this game scary? Like, is this a scary horror game? No, it is not. There's one section that focuses on horror, and otherwise, it's just a really fun action game. But for me, that is absolutely not a problem. Now, let's talk about combat. Combat is very fun. It's smooth. It's a little too easy, like, you will not really die if you play on the regular difficulty. But it's not as fun as I'd say Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6, but I still do think it is a lot of fun. They thankfully made it way quicker than Resident Evil 7, and they also fixed the enemies from Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 7 had terrible enemy design and like 3 different enemies, but here you have many different enemies that are cool, fun to fight. You got the Lycans, which are these very aggressive werewolves, and they're very fun to take on, and there's definitely a good variety. You get a lot more interesting enemies like like later on. Like at the beginning it's kind of but like later you get some real good ones. You get a really great arsenal of weapons. You got like your shotgun, sniper, pistol. They're all fun and very satisfying to use. It's all great. You got pipe bombs and mines that you can use for more stronger enemies, and there's just a lot that's great about the combat. The game also has a really fantastic gameplay system, which is basically the same system from Resident Evil 4, just better, where when you kill enemies, they can drop resources that you can craft heals and ammo with, or they can drop money that lets you upgrade and buy weapons and other stuff. You can also find treasures or pick up treasures off of bodies, and you can use those to get more money. You can buy weapons, upgrades, you can even hunt for animals and use them to craft more upgrades for yourself, and it's just a really great system that engages you in combat and gives you real good reasons to fight the enemies in front of you. Now, let's talk about some other things. The level design in the village is fantastic. You got a real interesting village with many interconnected ways, many optional treasures around it. The castle is very well designed, and for the most part, the areas are very well designed and interesting to explore. There is one area towards the end that's very linear and like a maze and very hard to like navigate, but I don't think it's terrible. It's way downgraded compared to the other one. I think the puzzles are mostly good. The puzzles are fun, like not too challenging to figure out, but they're fun to do. Small distractions, they're solid. I like how there's so much optional treasures around the map that you can explore and pick up, and they give you benefits in the game. Like, that's the stuff I want, man. Like, I like traveling around the map and doing all these optional stuff. Like, that's really for me. As well as boss fights. There are some really great boss fights in this game, which really surprised me. I would say there's around 5 boss fights that I really liked, and then the other 4 boss fights are kind of alright, but there's some good bosses in here, which surprised me. Let's talk about playtime. On my first playthrough, I played through on standard, and I beat the game in around 8 hours, and that's with getting most of the optional stuff done in around the map. So 8 hours is pretty short. And on my second playthrough, I played on hardcore difficulty, and I beat the game in 4.5 hours. So overall, it is kind of a short game, but trust me, there's a lot of replayability in this game, other than like some slow sections with no combat. The combat's very fun, and all your progress and weapons and upgrades move on to the next playthrough. So you can keep playing and like keep upgrading and so on. And even once you finish the game once, you unlock a special mode that you can buy from like this optional shop. It's a free mode. It's a free mode in the game. It's called Mercenaries, and it's a lot of fun. It's a very enjoyable arcadey mode. I really enjoyed it, and I'm gonna be playing it some more. And overall, I think this game is a very solid 9 out of 10. I recommend it if this game seems interesting for you. Thank you for watching, everybody. I'll see you guys next time. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.